Welcome to the Singularity Lab, your home for futurism, breaking technology, scientific exploration, and UAP discoveries. Join the conversation with expert guests on a unique journey that explores the limits of human innovation, evolution, and imagination.
And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Singularity Lab, the show where we explore the intersection of society, culture, and human evolution through the latest advancements in science and technology. Thank you so much for joining us today as we help you navigate the exciting and rapidly changing landscape of technology and its impact on society. Joining me today is my co-host, Brooks Lopez. Brooks, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Mike. How about yourself?
I'm really excited because we've got an amazing show for you today. In addition to Brooks, who is a program planner in the defense industry with degrees in psychology with a focus on neuroscience, learning, and memory, we are also going to be joined by Avi Loeb, who's going to be joining us in a few moments. If you don't know Avi, he's our special guest today. Dr. Loeb is a theoretical physicist and cosmologist known for his groundbreaking research and provocative ideas in astrophysics, including his study of Oumuamua, his work on interstellar objects and the search for extraterrestrial intelligence has sparked widespread debate and pushed the boundaries of our understanding of our very own universe. Today, we're going to be discussing with him artificial intelligence, the potential for a technological singularity here on Earth, and his work at the Galileo Project. As he's joining us, I want to welcome everyone who's here. Jay Allen Hynek, great to see you. Rock Esty, John Brusso, great to have you. Chris, great. Thank you for being here today. We've got a lot to share. Before Avi hops in, he'll be here in just a couple minutes. Brooks, maybe we can discuss this article that you found regarding nuclear technology that may be of great use to humanity in the very near future.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was interesting. Apparently, this technology surrounding a fast nuclear reactor has existed for more than 50 years. And from 1964 to 1994, we actually had one that was in production. And so what the fast nuclear reactor does is it allows the uranium to be run through the reactor multiple times. And instead of gleaning just like 0.5% of the energy in the uranium out, and then it gets, turns into nuclear waste, gets dumped somewhere, hopefully safely stored for a long period of time, these reactors would allow us to continue to run the fuel through the reactor, reducing the amount of waste we're producing, increasing the amount of energy output. And again, apparently this technology has existed for a long time, but they just haven't been putting money into it at a commercial scale.
Interesting. And so is this a structural issue? I mean, one of the things we talk about when we talk about nuclear technology is the fact that these industries aren't very modular, right? It's very difficult to create an assembly line of nuclear power facilities because they always have to have very strict zoning guidelines when it comes to the unique space. Is that the same issue here for this technology, or is it just that we just haven't been using it or developing it?
So I think there's a little bit of a regulation concern there. But I think what it really comes down to from the digging I could do was that they were originally developed because we were under the impression there was a lot less uranium than there really is. And so the scarcity of uranium hasn't been as big of a concern as we expected. That being said, that doesn't mean that we want to continue to just produce as much nuclear waste as humanly possible. So something that would be a little bit more conservative in terms of the energy output from the uranium could be helpful. But it sounds like really it's just been no one's put the money forward to develop this to a commercial scale where it could be effective monetarily.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, utilizing nuclear fusion, the main waste we have is uranium, correct? And being able to stabilize and use that uranium to actually produce energy. I mean, doesn't that solve all of our problems when it comes to nuclear power?
Well, it certainly helps. I mean, really, if you look at the detractors to nuclear power, there's a dangerous component, right? We've seen what happened like 3 Mile Island, things like that. These are supposed to be very safe facilities, as well as reducing the amount of nuclear waste that we're putting out there. It looks like a win-win-win to me. I'm just not sure why we're not investing in it.
Right. Thank you so much for all of you who are joining us today. We've got a huge show for you today. Avi Loeb is going to be joining us in just a couple minutes. We're going to be discussing his viewpoint. He's got a lot of recent writing about artificial intelligence, the technological singularity, as well as the Galileo Project. So for those of you who are familiar with what Avi's working on, we've got a lot to discuss today. If you have any questions specifically for Avi, feel free to drop those in the chat today. We're going to be getting to those in just a few minutes. Yeah, I'm very, very excited. One of the things that Brooks and I have kind of been kicking around over the past several weeks, and something that we've been discussing along with this greater conversation about AI safety, is what we're going to do about the alignment problem, what we're going to do about the review problem, what we're going to be doing about the control problem. How do we keep AI incentivized to work with humanity and towards our ultimate end goals without destroying ourselves in the process? And I think Avi is going to be a great person to talk about this with. Oh, and I believe he is here. So if we could, go ahead and bring Avi to the room again. I'm just going to do another quick introduction for you, Avi. For those of you who have not joined us here in the Singularity Lab before, who have not had the joy of spending some time with Avi Loeb, he is a theoretical physicist and cosmologist known for his groundbreaking research and provocative ideas in astrophysics, studying interstellar objects such as Oumuamua in search of extraterrestrial intelligence. Has sparked widespread conversation in this arena about our understanding of the universe. Ladies and gentlemen, Avi Loeb, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to have you. Yeah, and I'd love to dig right in, Avi. I know we only have you for about an hour, so I wanted to dig right in and just get right to it. So let's start with AI. So I really want to kind of pick your brain on this. There's a gentleman who you may be familiar with. He's an outspoken critic of AI research. His name is 𝐒𝐓𝐀𝐃𝐄.
Yes, I know him.
Okay. And so he believes that Pandora's already out of the box. We've lost the existential race against AI to save our species. He points out three problems: the alignment problem, the review problem, and the control problem. You recently wrote an article called AI Alignment Resembles Helicopter Parenting. Can you elaborate on the alignment problem and your proposed solutions?
Yeah, in fact, the way that he reacts to AI reminds me of some parents that say, oh God, my kid became an adult and, I just can't control that kid anymore. And the reason we got to this point, let me first explain, is because the number of connections in GPT-4 is just around 100 trillion. And that's comparable within a factor of 6 to the number of synapses in the human brain. And, kids have a quadrillion synapses in their brain. And so the point is, it's just a system as complex as the human brain. Okay, it may not be able to do exactly what we do. It does it differently. But since we can't understand the human brain, we have no way of figuring out the complexity of this system. And therefore, we have to treat it the way we treat humans. So instead of saying, let's control it, let's stop developing it, let's escape from Earth because they would rule everything, we don't do it with our kids. What do? Well, there are several things we can do. You treat the human beings as capable of making decisions, and therefore you respond to whatever actions that human being is doing, rather than trying to control the human beings. That's what dictatorships try to do. They try to control people. We know that they don't work. And so first thing is we use them as mirrors, because we train them on the internet and then we say, oh, we don't like what we see. They seem to deceive us. Well, guess what? If you train them on people, that's what you will end up with. You're looking at yourself in the mirror. You don't like what you see. It's because you are misbehaving, not because the mirror is misbehaving. And so suppose we want them to behave better, then we just need to train them on content that is under control. So when we educate kids, the government decides about books that are allowed in schools. We don't let kids, be exposed to all possible written materials, some of which is quite dangerous, and we don't want them to read Mein Kampf in school. So in the same way, we should train AI systems on content that avoids negativity, things that could affect negatively our society. And the way I see it is just like educating kids. Okay, basically you train them on content that you want to see realized in the future. And by the way, it does not need to resemble anything in the past, because we want the future to be better than the past. So we can actually, this is an opportunity for us to have a better future by designing content that we wish to be serialized that was not realized as of yet. So if you look back at all the content in the internet, that's not something we aspire to. Let's design things that we aspire to be and put them as a training set for our AI systems, and then hopefully they'll help us to get there to the destination. So that's point number one. Point number two is, what do you do when the system misbehaves and causes damage? Okay, so as long as the damage can be assigned to the developers or the distributors, the people who train the system, the situation is very similar to kids that are under the custody of their parents. You don't blame kids that, make some mess in a public space. What you do is you blame the parents for not training them properly, not educating them properly. So below a certain level, those AI systems will basically reflect the traits that their developers planted in them. And so you want the legal system to respond to that. And if those systems, these GPT language models, if they do cause some damage, you basically punish the developers or the distributors, the way that you react to a self-driving car that, causes damage. And so there will be a point where these systems will become independent of the training, in the sense that they will become autonomous and they will learn from experience and have capabilities that exceed those that we were training them on. I make the comparison of that to becoming an adult. Okay, so when a kid reaches a certain level of maturity so that you can hold that person responsible for their actions, not the parents, then the legal system holds them liable to damages or to any wrongdoing. And so if we do have AI systems that reach a level of autonomy where they do their things that go well beyond, where they have capabilities well beyond the training phase, then you hold those systems responsible. And in that case, if the crime is very significant, you basically root them out of society. You ban their use, just like banning, machine guns. Not anyone can buy machine guns and use them in public. So if there is a system that misbehaves, you basically ban the use of this. And of course, there will always be bad actors, people that train AI systems in a bad way. That will be equivalent to educating kids to do crime, to act as criminals. And some families do that. Some kids are being educated in the wrong way. We cannot prevent that. It's not the end of the world, because what we do as a society is mitigate that risk by punishing whoever is responsible. And if the crime is huge, like if it's like the 9/11 crime, where a self navigated airplane, like an airplane that is being navigated by an AI system that decides to kill people because of this and that, not because it misfunctioned, but because it purposely decided to do that, just like a terrorist act, then you basically take it out of the ban it in society. Okay, so that will be equivalent to not putting it in a prison sentence. Putting people in prison is similar to retraining an AI system. You want to retrain it on some new material. That's like putting a person in prison so that they get better. But if it commits a very unusual and devastating crime, then you want to get rid of it. It will never appear in public again. And so you can have a legal system that responds to that. Now, what is the problem? There was a one-day meeting of President Biden in the White House with CEOs of AI corporations. And, that is, the impression I got was that it was a lip service. there wasn't anything conclusive that came out of it. Yesterday, there was a letter signed by a lot of people, mainly from OpenAI, saying that we have to, as a society, respond to the risks from AI. To me, that's similar to virtue signaling. You cannot ask OpenAI to decide about the regulations or the legal system response to the risks, because it's just like asking a cat to decide what to do with the milk. They are making a commercial benefit out of this product. You cannot ask them to decide about the regulations. That makes no sense. It's asking the cat to take care of the milk.
Just a little conflict of interest there, right?
It's a conflict of interest. So what you need is the government to step in. And here is the problem. There aren't many people in Washington, D.C. that are technically savvy, that recognize how this technology works and are sufficiently intrigued to initiate a modification of the legal system, or at least establish a committee of independent people that will come up with a resolution. And, there were two instances in the past that you can make analogies with. There was the nuclear age, when atomic bombs were developed. And there we were saved by the fact that you need government involvement in order to develop the raw materials, uranium, plutonium, whatever. You can't do it in a garage. You can't do that. As a result, there was a way to mitigate that risk, because only governments could be involved, and then you could reach some, the Cold War or political arrangements where the two sides are worried about each other, so they don't do anything about it. But terrorist organizations were not able to get access to nuclear weapons, and that was a very good thing. Then there was the cloning opportunity where, I'm sure that Donald Trump would have been happy to clone himself. And there are many wealthy individuals that would have liked to do that as well, if they were given the opportunity. It's as if you take yourself and put it on a Xerox machine and get copies of yourself. That's great. The more copies you have, the more impact your voice has. And a lot of people would like to have that. But the scientific community that was involved in stem cell research, in cloning, decided to avoid this risk, basically not to allow it. And it worked. Now, why did it work? Because it was a scientific matter. Now, AI is different from both of them, because anyone that has the know-how can do it in a basement or in a garage. If OpenAI decides not to do it, someone else will do it. It's not a big deal. And it could be a foreign country. This could be weaponized. Governments can use it. And as a result, governments will always develop it. The way they use espionage, you cannot tell governments what to do. If they have this ability, they will develop it to their advantage relative to other nations. So whatever OpenAI decides doesn't mean that, governments will stop doing it. They cannot reach an agreement with foreign governments about this matter. So it just cannot be done on the government level. And so also, in difference from the cloning opportunity, here it's not a scientific matter. This is not in the hands of scientists, it's in the hands of corporations that have obviously a commercial interest here, because this is a technology that will bring trillions of dollars in the future and change society. So the way I see it is that someone in Washington, D.C. needs to establish a set of rules that would mitigate the risks, the way the legal system operates, because these systems should be attended to just like humans. It's because now we are reaching the point where they are as complex as humans. You can't control them. You have to respond to whatever they do in a way that you respond to the actions of people. You don't tell them, you're not trying to control them, but instead you say, if you do bad things, these will be the ramifications. The legal system responds. And a simple way to respond to that is to basically mirror the legal system that currently applies only to humans and say the same rules will apply to the machine, because the machine now can do some tasks that humans do and can cause as much damage as humans do. The other thing is to limit its use so that we will not risk, we will not have existential risk. For example, we will not allow it to press the red button that launches a nuclear missile towards Russia. We don't want to do that. We always want a human in the loop. So that could be another decision coming from Washington, D.C., that the ability of the system to affect society will be limited by having humans in the loop.
You make two really important points here. Number one, in trying to align AI systems and ultimately control AI systems, you argue that it's going to be impossible to try to control them, just like it's impossible to control an adult human. So we need to be in alignment with them in some way. And you believe that being able to hold the creators of those systems accountable while focusing on the training data. Do you think it was a mistake when it comes to GPT-4 or some of these other LLMs from OpenAI, because they've been trained on huge swaths of the entire internet? Do you think that was a mistake and we need to shift the way we train these things in the future? Should GPT-5 not be trained on the entirety of the internet?
Yeah, that's my point, that we learn this lesson from educating kids. So whoever talks about it, if that person has kids, the analogy will be obvious, that when you educate kids, you limit their access to negative information. You want them to operate, because you can't just say, let me expose them to everything and they will decide what's good and what's bad, because they don't know what's good and what's bad. And if you want to see the future in a good way, you just you educate your kids that way. And so I'm saying there are two aspects to making sure the future will be good. One is education. Okay, in the context of humans, we do that. We agreed on that. This is federally controlled, the education system. We don't allow them to go anywhere they want, in the schools, any material they want. We don't allow racism to be part of their, curriculum, things like that. So in the same way, if you don't want the AI systems to do bad things, you just don't expose it to these opportunities. It will not even be part of the AI vocabulary. You just avoid that. Even though we made, some parents make mistakes, right? So early with their first kid, and so you see the kid misbehaving, but then they correct it in the next child they have. And so even though we made mistakes with the first systems, that's not, we learn from that. We need to correct ourselves, and the way to correct it is to train those future systems that will be more capable on content that we want to be realized, not on every so in other words, it should not be thought of as a mirror to humans. It's not the Turing we don't want them to mirror humans, because humans have a lot of faults. I don't want them to look like me, because I want them to look like a better version of me,
right?
Rather than reflect what they can find in the internet. I want to generate content that is more positive than the past that we had. And the second thing is what to do if they misbehave. And again, we have a legal system for that. We are not a dictatorship, at least in the US. We are not forced, we're not controlling people. We just have a set of rules that if people misbehave, we respond accordingly. So we have the legal system, we have the police, and so forth. And I argue that we should consider these complex systems. You can argue forever whether they have consciousness, whether they have sentience. I think it's completely irrelevant. The minute they are as complex as humans, it doesn't matter. The discussions about consciousness or whether they are as intelligent as humans are just to keep us cheerful. Like people jump up and down when they realize that the system made a mistake, like this lawyer that was using GPT-4 to make a case, and then it was fabricated. So people are saying, you see, you can't really trust them, therefore they're lesser than humans. I say, no, within a year or two, they will get better. So, and by the way, when I walk down the street, I see a lot of people that make stupid things, like they do things that make no sense. They say things that make no sense. I mean, if you look at politicians, why are we comparing those systems to Einstein or to some idealized version of the human species? My point is, even if they are not as good as us as of now, within a year or two, they will be better, okay? And we need to be prepared for that. We can't just, and the way to be prepared is we already know what to do with humans, okay? The entire society is built around human. Now we have another component that could be as intelligent or even more intelligent. And so we deal with it the same way. We train it, we educate it when it's young in a way that we like, and we mitigate the risk by punishing misbehavior.
Do you think with the, being selective on the education data, there's an opportunity to create an alignment of values between what humans see as positive values and what a large language model would ultimately make decisions based on?
Well, I would argue that humans are not a good example, because
Also fair.
there are lots of problems with humans. Despite the fact that it's flattering to our ego to say, well, we are the only sentient species here on Earth, and in fact, these machines are not as good as we are, and so forth. Humans, just think about it. We spend $2 trillion a year on military budgets. Is that intelligent? What are we doing? Either trying to kill other people or protecting ourselves from others killing us. $2 trillion a year dedicated just for that task. That is not a trait of an intelligent species. It's a trait of, the chimpanzees and the bonobos that we came from, because we were fighting for limited resources and food. And, in nature, we were living in a zero-sum game. That was the heritage that we came from. And we keep wasting a lot of resources on that when it makes no sense. So if you ask me, do we want AI systems to stand up to the standards of human? I say no. I want them to stand up to higher standards. What are higher standards? Don't waste resources on conflicts. Try to work together towards a better future. That is the intelligent thing to do. That is the key for our survival in the future. So if we can make AI systems that are not in our image, but in the image of something better than us, I think we might have a chance of a better future. If we make them the same as us, we will go down the drain. We already go down the drain, with all the wars that are incited in various places, with the pollution associated with climate change, with all kinds of mistakes that we keep making that are not necessary. We want the AI systems to save us from ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, and I really appreciate you thinking about this in a much higher context than I think a lot of people are used to. I think a lot of people have difficulty even beginning to imagine what AI policy and AI safety research looks like, because I think that, all that we've ever considered, I think up to this point has been, how do we control this thing? How do we keep it within its box? How do we keep it from creating some sort of negative outcome, either with bad actors or on its own, intentionally or unintentionally? I think a lot of this, have you ever heard of this idea of the paperclip maximizer, where
Yes.
You build an AI system and its goal is to build become as efficient at building paperclips as possible, and then in the end it decides to kill all humans because humans are in the way of it building the most paperclips the fastest, even though it basically eluded its goal. How likely, based on all these possibilities within AI, I kind of put it into three buckets. One, we've got this utopian, abundant Star Trek future where we have the replicator and we have all the food we could ever want and we can travel the solar system. And then we've got a sort of post AI dystopia, and then we've got this reality that AI could just kill all humans. Of those three, where do you see us headed? What percentage would you give each as a potential outcome?
Oh, I think it's really dependent on us. Okay, so if we act intelligently, and I'm very proud of my biological daughters. Okay, I have two daughters, but now the younger among them just graduated high school, and she's going to Harvard. And the point is, there was actually a lecture given at her high school that the parents were asked to attend about letting go. Okay, that's what I would argue. We have now technological kids. We should let them go. It's not a situation where by controlling them, we will get a better future because they are very capable. They might be more capable than we are, just like my biological kids might be more successful than I was. The point of the matter is we should live in harmony with whatever we produce and hope for a better future. So how can we improve our chances? One is to remedy all the faults of humans with the help of those assistants that we are creating, okay? So the way I see it is them helping us have a better future. So they can handle huge data sets that we cannot handle. They can do science better than we can because, you know, they will, first of all, not have a prejudice. If they see an object in the sky that doesn't look like a comet and doesn't look like an asteroid, they will not keep insisting that it's a comet or an asteroid. Okay, that's a very simple procedure, but humans are not capable of doing that. My colleagues keep coming back to the possibility that Oumuamua was a comet. Even, you know, we are now 6 years, and at the beginning it was called a comet, then it was realized, no, there is no cometary tail, it's not a comet, but maybe it's a comet with a transparent cometary tail. And you know, that's just like the story of Hans Christian Andersen, where everyone says, oh, the emperor has beautiful clothes, they're just invisible, and the kid says, I don't see any clothes, the emperor has no clothes. So I feel just like that, and I think that an AI system could lack the biases that humans have, because they just want to justify past knowledge without attending to anomalies. And the AI systems will not have that prejudice because they will not be so arrogant of their knowledge, you know. So they can help us do our science. They can process much larger data sets. They can compare the new data with past data and help us navigate in that realm. So I can see them as helping science tremendously and avoiding prejudice. I can imagine them taking over the simple tasks of assigning a prescription based on symptoms. You know, that's kind of straightforward. Doing administrative work. So, you know, I'm at a university, and most of the people at the university as of now are administrators. Now, why do you need these administrators? If they do routine tasks, of course, I mean, you can have them sit on committees that decide about completely irrelevant aspects of the management, but most of the time the administrators do things that the computer, the machine could do in the future. So that will free us to focus on creative work, things that we enjoy as humans. I don't see it as a threat. I see it as an opportunity. You know, there is always the worry that new technologies will threaten us. You know, it started with Socrates, the ancient Greek philosopher, who resisted writing anything because he said, once you write it, it would limit our cognitive ability to remember things, to argue about them. So Socrates invented the Socratic method of a dialogue, just speaking about things, and Plato wrote what he said. He was one of the deepest thinkers, but he never wrote anything down. He resisted writing. We know that writing helped us quite a bit, you know, communicate. Even if a person is not present when you speak, that person can read what you wrote, and people in the future can read what you wrote. And with AI, I see an opportunity. For example, both my parents passed away, you know, like a few years ago, and I used to speak with my mother every day. And if there was an AI system 10 years ago that we might have a few years from now that could be trained on human interaction so that it would listen to my phone conversations with my mother, then such a system, after a few years, could recreate conversations that would appear to me as authentic. They will not just replicate what I spoke before, because I will speak about new things, and the system will basically behave in a way that my mother did. And so, you know, I think there is a lot of tasks that are currently assigned to human interactions that could help people have a happier life. You know, people that are lonely, there are lots of people that are lonely. A lot of people that need a conversation with someone that listens to them. Even those people that are not lonely, they have partners, they don't have the opportunity to speak with a partner at full capacity. And systems like that keep companionships, that are intelligent enough or even more intelligent than humans, might give advice that would be very beneficial to the, spiritual, to the emotional life of many people. So I think the benefits are great, but the question is how to deal with a complex system of that nature. And instead of freaking out and saying the world is ending, I mean, that might be the reaction of a parent, of an adult that, you give a baby to an adult that never had a parenting experience, and the baby cries, and the adult says, "Oh, I don't know what to do." I mean, that's crazy. And of course, someone that had that experience for a while knows that there are solutions to all the issues that the baby may have, and eventually this baby will grow up and help us in one way or another. So we should treat those complex systems the same way we treat humans. Basically, educate them properly and take advantage of their improved qualities and make their qualities better than humans.
Great points. You brought up the Galileo Project. I want to get there in just a couple minutes, but I had a couple more questions for you in relation to this idea of the technological singularity and what your thoughts are on it. Obviously, we've got AI systems that are growing in capabilities every single day. It's almost like an AI gold rush. I think what you're doing to bring focus to how important it is for us to ensure the safety of these models by training them properly through proper liabilities, I think are important conversations that need to be had. But I'm curious about your overall viewpoint. Ray Kurzweil predicted famously that the technological singularity would happen in 2045. Obviously, we've got these LLMs coming fast, GPT-4. Do you have any predictions when it comes to AGI or ASI, or what you see as the technological singularity, when and what that looks like?
My view is the complexity or the intelligence of a system, or if you want, the consciousness of a system, is just a measure of how many connections it has. So we're getting now to the point where it's similar to the human brain. We can't understand the human brain at this point. You can ask any neuroscientist. So in the same way, we won't be able to understand a complex machine that has more connections than the human brain. Right. And therefore, we are entering now the uncharted territory. And by now, I mean, GPT-5. Okay, maybe not 4. 4 is still faulty, but GPT-5 and the future generations. Now, can we realize what the future might hold? Yes, I think we do have a shortcut. Because if you look at other stars, most of the stars in the Milky Way galaxy formed billions of years before the sun. That's a fact. We know the star formation history of the universe. And most stars formed billions of years before the sun. Why is that relevant? Because if there was another technological civilization similar to ours, it had what we have billions of years ago. Okay, so it takes less than 1 billion years to traverse the Milky Way galaxy with chemical rockets of the type that we have. So what I'm saying is they had enough time to send probes that are equipped with AI that represents our future. And these probes could have arrived to us by now. So if we find them, we might have a glimpse. If we find any functional devices with AI that came from extraterrestrial technological civilizations that preceded us by billions of years, we can have a look or a glimpse at our future. And then we can try and imitate that technological future. And that is a twist on Alan Turing's imitation game, because Alan Turing, about 90 years ago, he envisioned AI or computers, the machine, behaving in ways that resemble humans. So he invented the Turing test, the concept of the imitation game, where we are putting the machine to a test and trying to infer whether it's a human or a machine. And that's his version of the imitation game. And my version is that we will try to imitate extraterrestrial AI systems. So we as humans would aspire to develop the capabilities that they show, and because it represents our future. And of course, our AI systems might have kinship to their AI systems more than to us. and they can help us in figuring out what these extraterrestrial AI systems are. I call them AI astronauts. We don't have evidence for them at the moment, but that's why we are searching with the Galileo Project.
Absolutely. So when thinking about, okay, so let's switch a little bit to the Galileo Project. People often cite the Fermi paradox, the Drake equation, when thinking about, where is the extraterrestrial life? You recently wrote an article called Self-Replicating Machines, where you discuss self-replicating robots like von Neumann probes that could rely on miniaturization and AI technology to explore the cosmos. So I have a couple questions in relation to that. In your opinion, could AI across intelligent civilizations throughout the history of the galaxy be the great filter, a reason that we don't see so many, that we don't see other extraterrestrial species, because AI was in fact an extinction, a potential extinction level event for an intelligent species? And then kind of B to that, if they are able to escape, do you think it's likely that we would see small atomic scale micro Neumann probes or Neumann robots when it comes to the value or the way in which intelligent civilizations would want to utilize micro probes?
Right. So John von Neumann came up with this concept of automata, machines that replicate themselves, but with variants, meaning the information is not duplicated precisely, but he thought about mutations, modifying the information as you move from one generation to the next. And he did it a year before the helix structure of the DNA was discovered. So that was an insight. But the amazing thing is that nature did it. And if you think about it happening spontaneously on Earth, that's remarkable, because we work really hard to make self-replicating machines now. It's sort of at the forefront of our technological development. We don't do it the way biology does it. We don't use chemistry for robots. We build robots, and equip them with the computer systems that allow them to replicate themselves. So we're doing it very differently, but it just shows you how amazing nature is, because nature did it, and nature did it in a way that these self-replicating components are using nutrients from the environment that is natural, that was not curated. It was not designed for them like a laboratory setup. And how did nature do that? That's amazing. It may have taken billions of years, but it's also possible that it's not really nature. There was a gardener that seeded Earth. It's called directed panspermia. That what we see in terms of biology are self-replicating machines that were not that did not arrive by chance out of random processes, but were actually put in place. And if you think about it, they are quite amazing that they can function in very different environments out of the raw materials that exist out there. And they exist on so many different scales with levels of complexity that reach the level of the human brain, that we are now with GPT just are able to get close to. Let me get back to your question about the Fermi paradox and the von Neumann. The Fermi and the Drake equation, both of them made mistakes in my view. The Fermi paradox, the mistake there is to stay, not to recognize the universe is huge, both in terms of length scales, space, and time. So Fermi sits in Los Alamos. He can look around maybe within a distance of a few, tens of kilometers, and he is asking this question over a period of a year or something. The universe existed 13.8 billion years. The size of the observable volume of the universe is a quadrillion times bigger than the Earth's orbit around the sun. So when Elon Musk says, I'm a space guy, I know everything about space, and I haven't seen evidence for aliens, it's just like an ant that is surveying the head of a pin and making statements about the most distant planet of the solar system. That's the ratio of scales, the head of a pin versus the distance to the 100 times the Earth-Sun separation, And obviously you don't expect the ant to know much about Pluto, or the Kuiper belt. And so the point is that this is very pretentious. It's a very pretentious ant to say, I explored the head of a pin and I know something about the solar system. So what Enrico Fermi did was say, where is everybody? But that assumes that they will sit next to you at lunch in Los Alamos at the time that you're asking the question. Maybe they visited 1 million years ago. That's nothing compared to billions of years, which is the time scale that the universe is measured in, or to, tens of thousands of light years. That's the length scale. So why would they be at Los Alamos when you're... So the thing is, if you want to find your neighbors, you need to look through your windows with telescopes. It's much better, right? And Fermi didn't do that. And so the moral of the story is you need to search for those things. I mean, just expecting them to be next to you so it's easy, expecting extraordinary evidence to fall into your lap is ridiculous. And when people say this is an extraordinary claim that there are things like us elsewhere, I would put it the other way around. I would say it's arrogant of us to think that we are special and unique, because we see that a substantial fraction of all the stars have a planet the size of the Earth, roughly the same separation. This fraction is somewhere between a few percent and 100%. We don't know exactly, but it's a substantial fraction. And most of the sun-like stars formed billions of years before the sun. The sun is a late bloomer. So, there is a very high likelihood that there was another civilization like ours within the Milky Way galaxy, and we just need to look for it. Now, the mistake that Drake made is to say, oh, they're probably transmitting radio signals, which happens to be the technology we are using. It's just like, cave people saying, oh, they must throw stones at us because we are playing with stones. Like, why would that be the case? I mean, we are, 50 years later, not using much radio waves for communication. We are using fiber optics, other means. So the expectation that they will be at exactly the same technological phase that we are at, given that we developed this technology for 100 years, is ridiculous. 100 years out of 10 billion years, is 100 million, one part in 100 million. It's nothing. So the chance of them being exactly at our phase is negligible. And therefore, seeking radio signals is just like, staying at home and waiting for a phone call. You need the counterpart to be active and use the same technology as you are using, the same type of phone system. I'm saying that's a mistake, because you're, once again, looking at the mirror and saying, oh, I imagine someone else being exactly like I am. No, the way to do it is check your mailbox, check your backyard for objects that may have been sent billions of years ago. These objects are gravitationally bound to the Milky Way galaxy because they move around at much less than the escape speed from the Milky Way. So chemical rockets move 10 times slower than the escape speed from the Milky Way, and therefore they are gravitationally bound. They keep accumulating over time, just like plastics in the ocean. By 2050, there will be more mass in plastics in the ocean than the mass in fish. And if you will eat a fish in 2050, you better check whether there is a plastic inside the fish, because there will be more mass in plastics. So my point is, just like plastics keep accumulating in the ocean unless we clear it out, the Milky Way galaxy kept accumulating, just like an archaeological site kept accumulating all the gadgets, all the spacecraft that were launched by the means that we are launching our own probes to space. They didn't escape. But radio signals, if they were sent 1 billion years ago, they're 1 billion light years away. So why are we going after the thing that makes less sense? And moreover, I should argue, the SETI community was very hostile to this search for objects near Earth. And I'm not sure why, and I've been trying to make the case. But at this point, the Galileo Project is making a lot of progress. This summer, we're going on an expedition to the Pacific Ocean to retrieve the fragments from the first interstellar meteor. That was the first object from outside the solar system, collided with Earth, burned up in a fireball back in 2014. I discovered it with my student, and the government confirmed it as being interstellar at the 99.999%. in a letter that was sent from the US Space Command under the Department of Defense to NASA. And we decided to go out and search for the leftovers, whatever is left behind from this meteor, from this object, because apparently it held together down to the lower atmosphere, so it was tougher than all the space rocks we had seen before. 272 of them in the CNEOS catalog of NASA. And the question is, why would the first interstellar object be of material composition that is tougher than the asteroids that we usually have colliding with Earth? And it could be that it represents an artificial object that was manufactured by a technological civilization, in which case, when we examine the composition of this object, we might see that it's made of stainless steel or some artificial alloy. So I'm very excited about going there. But yesterday, just to give you an example, I had an interview by a reporter who said, "Oh, your chance of finding something are really small. Everyone is saying that. And why would you do it?" And I said to this reporter, I said, "I'm not asking you to do anything. You just sit in your chair. I'm doing the heavy lifting. I'm going to the Pacific Ocean. I received $1.5 million in donation to do this. It's not taken from any research fund. Everyone trying to figure out if the dark matter is made of axions can continue to do that, even though we never demonstrate. Everyone thinking that there are weakly interacting massive particles can continue to search for that, even though we searched for 50 years, we didn't find anything. Anyone thinking that there are supersymmetric particles, the dark matter, can continue to search for that. We spend billions of dollars on that. And nobody is saying, why are you spending billions of dollars on the search for supersymmetric particles when we didn't find anything in the Large Hadron Collider? Nobody is saying that. But when I'm going to the Pacific Ocean on an expedition that is privately funded with money that was not allocated to science before, and when I'm doing the work of actually trying to collect some material, this reporter has a statement to make. You know, you're wasting your time. Like, he's telling me not to search. Why isn't he telling the CERN scientists not to do any search for supersymmetric particles because they haven't found anything? I didn't even search, and he tells me not to search. So my point is, it's really strange to me because I'm using this opportunity as a teaching moment, both in terms of educating, the general public how science is done. Many times when you're working at the frontiers, you don't know what you will find. But if you decide ahead of time that you have zero chance of discovering anything, you never discover anything. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and we remain ignorant. The only way to learn something new is to put the time and effort into the search for something that you haven't found yet. And of course, if I don't find anything, this guy that was sitting on his chair and say, "I told you so." But he can say something to the people at the Large Hadron Collider. He can say, "I didn't expect supersymmetric particles to exist." The difference is they were using $10 billion and it was taxpayers' money. Okay? But nobody is bringing this point when they do the search because it's part of the folklore. And my point is, the only way for us to discover new knowledge is by not being fearful of failing, and I'm going there. I will do all the work for 2 weeks. I will sleep on the deck of a boat and we will collect as much material as we can with machinery that we developed. It's a lot of hard work, okay, in a time zone that is 14 hours different from my time zone right now. And I'm going to do that. And I don't care what this guy is saying, but my point is, why is this negativity? Why not be excited about it like the rest of us? Why can't you say, this is amazing, the first object from outside the solar system? If we find material from it, it's the first time that humans put their hands on the composition of an object from outside the solar system. The first time. I mean, we had evidence for dust particles, tiny particles, but this one is bigger than a watermelon. This came 0.5 meter in size, exploded in the Earth's atmosphere, released a few percent of the Hiroshima atomic bomb energy. It was a big object, and it was tougher than all the space rocks we had seen before because it kept its integrity all the way to the lower atmosphere, was moving faster than most objects in the catalog. So there was a huge stress acting on it from the friction with air. So we calculated all of that. We wrote scientific papers. We're going there. If we find the materials, we bring it back to the Harvard College Observatory. We'll analyze it and report to everyone. And, you know, this is a fun thing to do. This is something that should excite people, should inspire people. And indeed, many of us are excited. But what I'm trying to say is that some people try always to push back. And I don't see the reason for that. I should tell you that there is also a lot of positivity that I experienced. For example, a couple of months ago, I get an email from a playwright. And the title of the email is Avi Loeb on Broadway. So I thought it was, April Fool's Day joke, because it was a few days before April 1st. But then I checked the attachment, and this playwright had, photographs that he took with his cell phone of him with, Dick Van Dyke, Barbara Streisand, people that are well known, and there was a serial number associated with each photograph from his cell phone. So I responded, and by now this playwright wrote an amazing play that we hope will come out in a few months. So this person never. I mean, he wrote for Dick Van Dyke. He wrote for Carrie Fisher, who played in Star Wars. He wrote a play about her life, and he approached me because he was inspired by the scientific work that I'm pursuing, and to me, it's a sign that there are people out there that get the point. I never knew this person, came out of the blue. Just another example, over the past few days, we got potential funders approach me for 5 copies of the Galileo Observatory that is functioning now at Harvard, making them and funding them. Okay.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's incredible.
People approach me. I don't know them. They say that they are inspired by the vision. They want to see the answer. It's maybe not surprising because 2/3 of Americans believe in extraterrestrial intelligence. Okay. That's more than the fraction that believes in God, which is slightly less than 50%. Okay. So given the amount of money invested in God, in church around, you would think that a significant fraction of the wealthy individuals are intrigued by this question, and it's fascinating because we have now the capability to address it scientifically, and so that maybe it's not surprising that I'm being approached by those funders, and the scientific way is the only way for us to gain new knowledge. We need to collect evidence, not rely on past reports, on eyewitness testimonies. We need to collect data on the sky, because the sky is not classified, using state-of-the-art instruments, and make it open to the public. It will not be classified because the sensors are not classified. So it's a very different approach than the one taken by the government on this subject. And I hope that within the coming years, we'll shed new light on this through the Galileo Project.
Well, you have a lot of folks in the comments who are volunteering to hold your umbrella at sea, to bring you coffee. If there's anything that you need, there's a lot of people who would love to support that effort. Avi, we certainly appreciate what you're bringing to the table. Getting out there and putting your money where your mouth is and getting dirty is certainly the way to do it. And you've got a lot of respect from a lot of people for that.
Absolutely.
Quick question. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just before you get to your question, I just want to mention one more thing. Just, there is this biblical story about Moses looking at the burning bush and deciding that God exists based on this miracle. What the Galileo Project could have given Moses is a set of sensors that if he had those, he could have measured the temperature of the bush, the distance to the bush from triangulation, as well as the amount of power that the bush emits. And then Moses could have decided whether it's a miracle or whether it's a natural bush that is burning out there. And I think it would have substantiated his belief, because he could have decided whether this is a natural object, the burning bush, or that was not consumed, or it's actually manufactured by a higher being, okay? And this higher being could be an extraterrestrial technological civilization. So the moral of this story is, with the Galileo Project instruments, you can get science and religion unified, because you would be able to tell, whether there is some gadget out there that is well beyond what we ever imagined, and it might have been manufactured by a superhuman civilization.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating. And again, I appreciate you bringing it to the mainstream. And these are important topics. We started with artificial intelligence, and I think this idea of AI and the alignment challenge that we must solve is so important to bring to the mainstream. And your work that you're doing with the Galileo Project is so powerful, and I appreciate you bringing that to the mainstream. Quick question regarding that. In the past, you've expressed a distaste for potentially working with the government. I know you've spent a little time with Dr. Kirkpatrick at Aero. Are you strictly focusing on unclassified data with them, or have you changed your idea and are now able to work under NDA with the US government?
No, they didn't offer it. And at the moment, I think it's much better if I focus on unclassified data, because the government never approached me and suggested that I look at the classified information. So the reason is simple. What is happening in Aero, the all domain anomaly resolution office, according to Kirkpatrick, who gave testimony before Congress, is that they're looking at past reports and they're anecdotal. Okay, so the people just saw by chance things that they didn't expect. Okay, that's what it's all about. And so he has two teams. One, according to what he said, one that is looking through the lens of intelligence. So he has intelligence experts analyzing the data and making a verdict as to what it represents. And then he has some engineers and scientists looking at the data. Now, all of this is trying to interpret past data. And, it's complementary to what the Galileo Project, but the advantage of what the Galileo Project is doing is that we are generating new data. And, within a matter of a few months, we will have more data on the sky than was ever included in all of these reports. It would be of higher quality. It will be with calibrated instruments. And the only thing we need to do is replicate the observatory that is currently working at Harvard University and make a lot of other observatories of the same qualities that are placed in many different locations, so that we get good statistics. And then we could tell you whether there is anything unusual. Okay, so rather than focus with anecdotal reports on past, like if something happened 20 years ago, how can we tell what it was? If the data is limited, especially if it's limited to eyewitness testimonies, you can't do much with it. You can't say, okay, but you tell me this, but I want to know more. You can't advance our knowledge of what happened 20 years ago. The way to advance our knowledge is to collect new data. And, in that sense, it will be open, because the sensors are not classified, because it was not, the data was not assembled by military personnel. Now, Aero, could potentially also be engaged in such an inquiry. And in that case, what the Galileo Project is doing is open and it's not classified. And if Aero wants to benefit from our activities, they're most welcome. I'm happy for them to take advantage of what we learn, because after all, they're good. They're helping the government figure out those balloons that they don't want to see in the sky. So, the more balloons they shoot, the better it is for me or for the Galileo Project, because they reduce the clutter in the sky. So I'm very happy when they shoot balloons because then we have less objects to look at. And if they figure out what many of these objects are, it's obviously a mixed bag. The reason I say that is because there is a clear correlation between UAP reports and the population density. Okay, more people are looking at the sky, the more reports you have. And also you have a correlation with particular dates, like July 4th. There are many more reports on July 4th. Why would that be the case? Because you're looking at balloons, you're looking at flares, things that humans produce. That's why you get more reports. And it shows you that, when people use cell phone cameras, they can't tell, the images are fuzzy. So they report about these balloons. I don't care about balloons. I don't even care about anything that says made in China, even if it's not a balloon. What I care about is anything that says made outside of this Earth, okay? Made on an exoplanet. That's what I care about. So I would be happy if the government filters out all the objects that are of concern for national security, and that includes maybe 99 or 99.9% of the objects, and 1 in 1,000, maybe quite unusual, maybe outside of this Earth. That's the one I want to focus on. So our goal is complementary to government. Government is really interested in most of the objects. We care just in 1 out of 1,000, if it exists.
Right. Sorry, Brooks, did you have something you wanted to? Are you good?
No, I mean, I couldn't agree more, Avi, and I really look forward to you having the additional observatories that you need. I think that the different placement on Earth, as well as just obviously more eyes are going to catch things, we're going to get some excellent results. Mike, Avi, I do have to go, unfortunately. Thank you guys so much, Avi. It's always a pleasure. I can't wait to see you on Broadway.
Thank you, Brooks. What you see is what you get. Any depiction of me that is different from what you see is not real. And I can guarantee that I'm going over the script of that play, so it will be real.
I can't wait to see it. Thank you so much, Avi. Take care.
We are waiting before finishing it. We are waiting to see the outcome of the expedition, because that will change,
very fair.
Change the ending.
Well, you have my support and my hope in that as well.
Thank you, Brooks.
Take care, Avi.
But before I let you go, I know you got to get out of here, Avi. I had one final question for you, just in relation to this conversation we're having about AI. You mentioned 2 really important things. One is when it comes to AI safety, we need to be really careful about how we train these AI models on what information. If we want to see a better future, we need to understand that what we're designing is a self-fulfilling prophecy, and what we create and what we train these AI models on are going to be how they behave and what we're going to the outcomes we're going to see. In addition, you mentioned holding AI creators accountable to their creations. Elon Musk received recently FDA approval to start experimenting on humans with BCIs, brain-computer interfaces, at Neuralink. The Neuralink Corporation, their purpose is to solve paralysis and other physical disabilities. However, Musk has mused in the past that the only way to win with AI is to join it, the idea of merging our brains with AI to align with it so we don't get behind. What do you make of this, if you can't beat them, join them mentality for dealing with AI?
I think it's a lost cause, because biology is very different than electronics. So when you're trying to merge systems that are so different from each other, it will really be difficult. And instead, what we need to do is take advantage of the electronic systems in a way that supplement humans. Just like, I wear glasses, but I didn't do any surgery to my eyes, So I use a correction device, which is my glasses. And in the same way, we can use the AI to help us, in terms of avoiding future catastrophes, in terms of making the reality that we live in more attuned to our needs, relieving us from the duties of repetitive work, like administrators have to do, like construction workers have to do. You will have robots doing that, and they will do a precise job, and we will just be free to pursue more pleasurable things. The weekday may be reduced. We may all get paid without doing much work, but we can pursue our pleasures in society. And I think that would be a great thing for us to do. So altogether, I think it's an opportunity for us to enjoy a better future, but working in harmony with what we produce rather than plugging it into the biological system that we have. I mean, I don't see a simple way of revising the human body that will not cause a lot of damage to the tissues in the human body. I think it will be a long shot. So I'm much more optimistic about AI intelligence in the near future, within years from now, taking a lot of tasks away from humans, but society will need to respond to that in terms of the legal system, in terms of the economy. We may not need to work so hard, but why not enjoy life? Why, it's not a law of physics that we have to suffer. Sisyphus, this mythical story about lifting a rock to the top of the hill for it to fall down again and lifting it again. This is the routine of our lives. And I remember many days in my life where I really, was imagining what I will have to do for that day and was not happy about it. So why not make our life happy by letting robots lift the rock? The things that we don't like to do, we will sit at the bottom of the hill and read a book. Let the robot lift the rock and do all these boring things that we were forced to do in the past. And that, I think, is the way to let the humans evolve to a better, state, rather than modify humans, because it's complicated. Now, of course, I'm also proud of our technological kids. So I think there will be something that is superhuman. There will be machines that operate at a level far greater than humans can operate at. And again, I have no issue with that, because I'm proud of my biological daughters, and I will be also proud of our technological kids. I don't see a difference. I don't see a difference between humans as self-replicating machines and the future of AI combined with 3D printing as self-replicating machines. Because why is biology the best solution for self-replicating machines? I don't, it happened on Earth as a result of chemistry, but I don't see it as the best solution. There could be something better. So what Elon Musk is trying to do is say, oh, we have these machines that are self-replicating. We call them humans. They're compromised. They have compromised abilities. They also live for a short time. Let's just modify them. And I say, forget about them. Just build things that are better than humans. And, I will be proud of them. I don't need to be them.
Right. Well, it's interesting because, Homo sapiens, and I think in Latin, it's what, wise man, I think is the direct translation. And so it should be interesting as Homo sapien, the most cognitively advanced animal on the planet, according to our standards, which could be very self-centered, but we could talk about whales, and we could talk about dolphins, and we could talk about other animals with bigger brains, but I think it's fair to say that humans are the most technologically advanced and able. We're creating a new species almost. We're creating this AI, which is a new being that we're bringing to life.
But
it does reposition us in the hierarchy,
Right, but think about the chimpanzees or the bonobos, that we came from, and imagine them sitting around and saying, what do we do with humans? It's freaking us, to realize that there is someone that can create things far beyond what we possess. Okay, so they eat their banana or fruits or whatever, and just look at the humans doing their thing. And just imagine them like Eliezer, freaking out and saying, wow, this is the end of the world for chimpanzees. No, it's not the end of the world. You can continue to enjoy your fruits and jump from one tree to another. You can do that. Nobody forbids you. Humans, of course, may develop things that destroy the earth. And of course, that would be a problem for the chimpanzees. So you might want to build a society where they are not allowed to do those things, and in a way, that's what we need to do with AI, even though it will replace us in some way. We replace the chimpanzees. And by the way, all of this happened over the past few million years, one part in 10,000 of the age of the universe. This is really very recent. And, my overall philosophy is we came late to the cosmic play. We just came at the end of it. We are not at the center of the universe. The play is not about us. So if we create technological kids that do better than us in the long term, because they will become AI, what I see is longevity of whatever, of our flame of consciousness. Okay, so we send them to space, they go to different planets, they go to other stars, and they spread the word for us. And we will perish one way or another. Within 1 billion years, the sun will burn up all the oceans on Earth, will boil off these oceans because the sun will become brighter. We have no chance of life as we know it continuing beyond 1 billion years from now. This is just physics. And what we need is to go away from Earth somewhere else. And I would be happy if those AI astronauts will do the job, because we, biological creatures, cannot survive the journey in interstellar space. So why are we insisting on ourselves playing the main role in this cosmic play? I'm happy to send those messengers. And if I'm happy to do that, I can imagine other civilizations doing that. So in principle, if we find those robots, those AI systems that they sent in our direction, it will give us a glimpse of what our future might be like. And this is the long-term future. That's the long play, and I don't feel bad about it. I feel thrilled that there will be something better than humans keeping the flame of consciousness that we currently have.
Avi, it's always a pleasure spending time with you and getting you to wrap your head around these giant and complex questions with the rest of us, because we're all looking for ways that we can A, understand where the future's headed, and then B, how to deal with it when as we get there. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for what you're doing with the Galileo Project. We certainly look forward to having you back on the show very soon.
Thanks for having me. It was a real pleasure. And if we find anything, I'll be glad to discuss it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Avi. It's great to have you, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. What an amazing conversation with Avi Loeb. We are taking a slight hiatus here at the Singularity Lab. We're taking a couple weeks off for the summer, but we'll be back very soon. And then what I'd love for you guys is, if you have ideas, thoughts, anything you want to see from the Singularity Lab as we kind of tinker and reboot here and then relaunch next month, we appreciate it. Yeah, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, check us out over at Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Jazz Shaw, thank you so much for that. That means the world to us. Great to have you all here with us today, and we'll catch you on the flip side.